Right now, there's a really critical debate happening in the UK Parliament. And honestly, it could change everything for thousands of Hong Kong families who've already uprooted their entire lives to move here. We're talking about the British National Overseas Visa, the BNO visa, and a promise that's starting to feel like it's under some serious pressure.
So this is really the foundation of the whole thing. These are the government's own words. The Home Department Minister, Mike Trapp, didn't just call it a policy, he called it a historical and moral commitment. I mean, those are incredibly powerful words, right? They set the stage for a profound promise made to people who are looking for a new, stable life here in the UK.
But this is where things start to get complicated. While that commitment sounds so clear and solid, there are now some proposed changes to the UK's immigration rules that are causing a huge amount of anxiety for BNO families who are already well on their way to making the UK their permanent home.
Okay, let's break this down. The problem, in a nutshell, is this. The deal was supposed to be pretty straightforward. You live here for 5 years on your BNO visa, and then you can apply to settle for good. Simple. But now, the proposed new path throws in two massive new hurdles, and they come late in the game. A brand new income requirement and a much higher English language test. And this is why you're hearing the phrase moving the goalposts so much. This isn't just a small tweak to the rules. I mean, think about it. For families who sold their homes, quit their jobs, pulled their kids out of school in Hong Kong, all based on the original set of rules, this feels like the referee is changing the rules of the game in the final minute.
And the potential impact? It is just staggering. A survey that was presented in Parliament showed that if these new rules are applied to everybody who's currently on the visa, only 8%, just 8% of BNO households think they could actually meet these new requirements. That really puts the scale of this whole thing into sharp focus.
So, as you can imagine, this has sparked a pretty unified response from politicians across the board. Members of Parliament aren't just raising an eyebrow, they're coming together to propose a very specific and what they say is a common sense solution to protect the people who moved here in good faith.
And the key phrase you need to know is transitional arrangements. It sounds a bit technical, but the idea is actually super simple. It's sometimes called grandfathering. It's a standard tool governments use to make sure new rules only apply to new people coming into a system, which, protects everyone who's already on the path.
And you can hear the argument put perfectly clearly by MP James Naish, who kicked off this whole debate. His point is all about fairness. People who are already on the 5-year path to settlement shouldn't suddenly have new conditions dropped on them, retrospectively, meaning applied backwards after they've already started.
And this is not just one person's opinion. You hear MP Sarah Hall echoing that exact same thought, almost word for word. It really shows you there's a solid consensus building here. The message they're sending to the government is crystal clear. Don't make changes retroactive and use these transitional arrangements to protect the people who are already here.
Then you have MP Wera Hobhouse, who brings a real sense of urgency to the table. She points to a very specific date, April 2026. Why? Because that's when the first huge group of BNO families becomes eligible to apply for settlement. Her plea is simple. Make sure that this entire wave of people is completely shielded from any of these new rules.
So with such a clear and unified demand coming from Parliament, you've got to wonder, how did the government respond? Well, their answer was nuanced. And crucially, it does leave the door open.
Okay, so the minister did acknowledge that the BNO route is unique, and he confirmed the basic 5-year path to settlement isn't going anywhere. But, and this is a big but, he stopped short of making a firm promise. He basically said no final decisions have been made yet, and that a formal consultation is now open for people to give their views.
And this is pretty much where we are right now. It's the bottom line. The government is signaling, hey, we hear you, we know this is a special case, but they haven't yet committed to those all-important transitional arrangements, and that leaves thousands and thousands of people in this awful state of uncertainty, just waiting to find out what their future holds.
So this brings us to the biggest question of all for these families, right? What exactly is being decided now, and when on earth are they going to get a final answer?
So this new government consultation is looking at a bunch of key issues. That central question, transitional arrangements, is officially under review. But they're also looking at other really important details, like could people use their savings or assets instead of just income? And what about exemptions for vulnerable people or those with learning differences? And you really need to look at this timeline to understand the pressure cooker everyone's in. The consultation, where people can submit their opinions, closes on February 12th of next year. That is just weeks. Literally weeks, before April 2026, when that first huge wave of BNO families is supposed to be applying to settle. I mean, the clock is ticking.
and it's ticking really, really fast. So we are left with this one fundamental question. On one side, you have the government wanting to bring in new, tougher immigration rules. And on the other side, you have what the government itself called its historical and moral commitment to the people of Hong Kong. For thousands of families, the decision on exactly where that line gets drawn will, quite literally, determine their entire future.